I've known Pat for quite a while. He was actually one of my Little League teams. And he had some really tough times. And I know some of us here may also be having some tough times. And the point of having Pat talk to you today is to let you know that sometimes even when we're seemingly at the bottom in hopelessness, that we always have hope. And we should always try to have hope. And he's going to tell you his story that took place in 8th grade, right around where you guys are, and how he got out back.
Thank you guys for being willing to listen. So, I believe that all of us are alive for a reason. That each of us has a specific mission to accomplish while we're here on Earth. However, this reason that we're alive, and the answer to the question of, why am I here, is something that we grow to realize and know. And you see, this question of, why am I here, is probably what you've asked yourself today. Why am I here? What am I doing in this retreat? Even though you might not have an answer to this question right now, you might be thinking, I could have been spending my Sunday doing anything else. I know, I've been there. But I want you to open your hearts and open your ears for a short time as I tell you the story of my faith and the story of my life. You see, some of us can spend our whole lives looking for what our purpose in this life is. And as Catholics and Christians, we learn that God has a plan for us. But at times I've found myself frustrated because what I want for my life and what God wants for my life aren't always the same thing. Let me tell you a little bit more about myself. My name is Patrick Collins, and I'm a senior at Bridgewater State University. I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and I'm studying exercise science. I'm a public speaker and an author. But over all the things that I do, I find the most fulfillment in what I'm doing for you guys today. In traveling to churches and schools and sharing my testimony of faith. And this question of why am I here often pops in my head during high resistance times. You know, like when I'm up until 2 in the morning studying, or when I can't keep my eyes open in class the next day. And it's during these times that I ask myself, what am I doing all this for? Who am I doing this for? And that question again, why am I here? You see, my parents always told me that I was born with a purpose. But I never really knew what that purpose was. It was in middle school that I felt that I was finally coming to know who I was. In middle school, I defined myself as an okay student, one of the popular kids, and an awesome baseball and hockey player. See, I thought my life at that time was incredible, and I was pretty sure I was going to make it to the MLB playing center field for the Red Sox or play defense for the Bruins. I wasn't really sure which one. But I thought at that time that that was my purpose in life. You see, I lived at home with mom and dad and 2 sisters, and I had a great family. I was happy, healthy, and popular. See, what else could I need? But I would soon come to realize how quickly things can change. And I realized this when my health began going downhill in April of 2009, when I was in 6th grade. You see, I came back from a week-long nature trip with my Catholic school that I went to, and immediately I knew something was wrong. Once I returned, I had these weird symptoms that I couldn't explain. I had sinus infections, fatigue, body aches. All of a sudden in school, I couldn't read anymore. My handwriting started to suffer. And every time that I looked at a page, it was like the words were scrambled, like they were written in a different language that I didn't understand. So when I got home, all I wanted to do was sleep. My head throbbed from constant sinus infections that never went away. And see, it wasn't for lack of trying that we couldn't find a diagnosis for me. We went to over 50 doctors, and none of them knew what was wrong with me. I wasn't myself anymore, and my friends began to notice. They stopped talking to me altogether and avoided me in the hallways. I felt empty. By the beginning of 7th grade in 2010, I wasn't able to go to school at all. I was bedridden with exhaustion. I was unable to breathe through my nose because of the pressure in my sinuses. See, all my knuckles and my joints couldn't move. My knuckles turned purple. I wasn't able to talk like I used to. I developed a stutter. See, it was impossible for me to communicate what I was feeling. And at this time, I expected to get endless text messages and phone calls from all my friends, my classmates. But none ever came. But they forgot about me, I thought. But at the same time, my mom had stage 2 breast cancer. So all my mom's friends brought fruit baskets and gifts and encouraging cards. And I was confused. Why did my mom's friends care and mine didn't? My sisters thought that I was faking all my symptoms so that I could have attention, but the truth was that I hid my symptoms the best that I could, and I knew that I wasn't the priority. So a lot of times I sucked it up and had to tough it out because I thought that my mom was the one who was really sick. And maybe it was all in my head. But my mom said that in the beginning, people were there. But once I went through treatment and lost my hair and needed a hand to hold and a shoulder to cry on, I only had my family. She said I only had my family. And I think this proves an important point that during times when friends may leave, family needs to stay strong. You see, almost a year later, my mom recovered, but I still had no diagnosis. Until an infectious disease doctor decided to do another blood test. Within a month, I had a diagnosis. I had Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a noun, an inflammatory disease characterized at first by rash, headache, fever, and chills, and later by possible arthritis and neurological and cardiac disorders caused by bacteria transmitted by ticks. Simple, right? But you see, the thing was that for every 1 month of undiagnosed Lyme disease that a patient has, the patient needs 2 months of antibiotics. You see, I was undiagnosed for over 2 years, for 26 months. So I was in for a 4.5-year battle that I wasn't sure that I was ready to fight. And see, at that point, I'd been out of school for nearly 2 years, and I started losing hope. See, all my friends had moved on. Their lives were continuing while I felt like I was drifting away. My health was abysmal. My family was tearing apart at the seams. I could see it. See, my friends had all left me. Imagine what it's like not to get a text message or phone call for a year and a half, for 18 months. Imagine what it's like to only talk when your family's home. You see, I thought that one of my values growing up was not caring what other people thought about me. And see, it didn't matter to me what my classmates, what my former friends thought about me. It was the words of the doctors that weighed the heaviest on me. When I went to doctors and they said, I don't know what's wrong with you, or I've never seen Lyme disease affect a patient this much, or maybe you are depressed, or maybe if you drink coffee in the morning you'll be able to wake up, or you'll get worse before you get better. But how could I get worse? At that point, my brain was too scattered to think. My hands were too crippled to even hold a pen. I was sent for an MRI of my brain. My brain lit up like a Christmas tree. I had 7 lesions in my brain. These are areas of what they call permanent brain damage caused by the Lyme disease. This led to a full body MRI. The disease was in every organ of my body. You see, I was beyond the point of recovery, they said. There wasn't much they could do. I was put on IV medication as a last-ditch effort. My ability to eat slowly withered away. I was being fed through an IV tube. See, this medication only made things worse. My already swollen joints were unable to move, and I was truly bedridden for about 3 months. And after 3 months of this intensive treatment, the disease continued to spread. You see, this was the darkest moment of my life. There wasn't much hope for my situation, and I wasn't sure where to turn, so I turned to God. See, I was already indignant towards Him because I thought that He'd given me this ailment. See, during times that I prayed and I called out for Him, my prayer wasn't answered. I said, God, if there is a God, please take me out of my suffering. And every morning when I woke up, this just made me feel that God wasn't listening to me. See, this is what rock bottom felt like, I thought. I truly felt like a burden on my family. See, I was the reason that we were falling apart. All the experimental medications that I was on cost upwards of $75,000. See, I drained my parents emotionally and financially. I started asking myself these questions. What's my purpose? Why can't I be normal? Why can't I just be like my friends? Why am I here? See, I asked myself these questions thousands and thousands of times and I never came up with an answer. You see, during this time I felt hopeless. I felt like my life didn't matter. See, I felt like my life wasn't worth living. But there was a moment in this darkness where God's light shined through. It was during this time that I'd given up that I knew that God interceded. It was in that moment of darkness and that moment of hopelessness that I felt as if I heard the voice of God. It's like he encouraged me to keep on fighting. He told me that there was a plan for my life, that he had more planned for my life than what I had planned for myself. You see, even though I couldn't see my future, God encouraged me that it was his plan and not mine. So this experience reminded me of Genesis 1 and 3, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light in the darkness. And John 1 and 5, and it said, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Where there once was darkness, now there was only light. I had new life. I was given a second chance. You see, I know that God reached into that situation and pushed me in the direction that he wanted me to go. It was like I had this fire inside me that was contagious. My parents noticed the difference because one day I asked my dad, "Can I play hockey today?" And you see, my dad and I both knew that I hadn't played hockey in 3 years, but when your 14-year-old son who's been bedridden for 3 months feels well enough to leave the house, you take him wherever he wants to go. So my dad brought me to the ice rink. I put on my skates and I started skating a few laps, first shuffling along the boards. Then within a few minutes I began making full strides, skating without any help. You see, at that time I was struggling to walk, but the skating felt effortless. It was weightless on my joints. I was skating again, and I felt like I was flying. You see, my parents sat on the bleachers that day wondering if it would last. See, my parents couldn't help but notice the change in my spirit. Something was different. The way that I looked at my situation changed. I started focusing on all the things that I could do rather than the things I couldn't do. I began praying again. I began going to church again. And I said, "God, I surrender. I can't win this fight on my own. Whatever you want for my life, I say yes." Yes, this was a time when I couldn't go to school. And yes, this was a time where I couldn't read or write because of the damage that had been done to my brain. But I said yes to God and his plan for me. And I just kept on moving forward. I did what I could every day to get better. I began walking, first 100 steps, 200 steps, then to the mailbox and back, up and down the street. I started running. I kept on going to the ice rink, and I kept on skating, and I kept on shooting hockey pucks in my driveway, and I kept on moving, and I kept on praying, and I kept on going to church, and I kept on fighting. Physically, I started to feel better. I was able to stay awake for longer periods of time. And I continued my Lyme disease treatment. You see, I felt like I was alive again. And my faith grew during this time as I went back to church. And I realized that God had never left me. That all of those prayers that I was challenging God might not have been answered, but they were not unheard. You see, I also realized during this time that God has a much bigger purpose for my life than I could have seen for myself during that time. You see, God is the author of my life. He gave me my purpose. You see, this all happened in February of 2010. After that, I spent 6 months working with neurological therapists, learning how to read and write again. I exercised daily to regain my strength. And you see, one of my friend's dads reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to play for his baseball team. Again, I hadn't played baseball in 3 years. And doctors told me that I would never go to school and that I would never play sports again, but I was feeling the best that I had since I started to get sick. So I said yes. And that spring, I played for a baseball team. See, and I felt like I hadn't missed a beat. I played at the same level that I did before I had Lyme disease. See, we won the championship that year. And in the championship game, I pitched 7 innings and had 3 hits. You see, even though I was told I would never play sports again. You see, it's called borrowed confidence. Sometimes we have to believe in someone else's belief in ourselves before we can believe in ourselves. You see, that was the case with that baseball coach. That even though he might not have known it, he had a significant impact on the course of my life. Because then in 2011, I went back to school full-time at St. Mary's Sacred Heart. And in 2012, I went to high school at Bishop Ian, where I played 3 sports. And then in 2016, I went to Bridgewater State University, where I ran NCAA track for 3 years. And then in 2017, I published my book, fighting for my life, how I found God, and beat Lyme disease. Now I'm a published author speaking in front of you in 2020, even though doctors told me that I would never read or write again. You see, I ran track in college, but they said I wouldn't play sports again. And this May I'm going to graduate college, but they said I wouldn't go to school again. You see, I can't even believe how far I've come, even thinking about graduation coming up. But I think the lesson is that God has a plan for my life. God has a plan for my life that's greater than what I can see for myself. And sometimes looking back, I can't believe how far that I've come. You see, God loved me when I didn't love myself. He had hope for my life when I didn't have hope for myself. And you see, my book is called Fighting for My Life. And I found out very quickly that I wasn't strong enough to win the fight with Lyme disease alone. I did not beat Lyme disease by myself, and that's why I called it How I Found God and Beat Lyme Disease. Because without him, it wouldn't have been possible. You see, the battle was won by the blood of Jesus. See, God pulled me from that fire and that storm and rescued me. So now my life belongs to God because he gave me a second chance. Although I may never fully understand God's plan for me, I'm starting to understand and get more of an answer to the question of why am I here. I'm here to serve God and to live out his plan for me. I'm here to share my testimony with others and to bring them to Christ through it. I'm here to live for Christ. You see, my way of life didn't work. Now my life belongs to God. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches us that we are made by God and for God, to know him, love him, and serve him in this life and be happy with him in the next. It was through my experience that I came to know this for myself. You see, I'm still fighting for my life. I'm fighting to live God's plan for my life. I'm fighting to live my life the way that God has called me to. You see, I'm still fighting for my life. But God is the one who saved my life. And you see, I've shared this testimony hundreds and hundreds of times. I've traveled to different parts of the country and different parts of the world, sharing my story and talking about my book. This same story that I've shared with you today. But today, I feel like I'm at home. You see, Sacred Heart is my home parish, but that's not the only thing. You see, the baseball coach who invited me to be on that team in 2010 is here today. That coach showed me the light of Christ without even knowing it. That coach is your program leader, Mr. Brunel. So, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for working my life and being Christ in my life when I didn't know. So, you see, God has a plan for our lives. See, he'll provide you with all the resources, all the people that you need. And all that you need to do is to say yes. Thank you guys for listening.